starts to rise and I open my eyes, you are good, so good. In the heat of the day, with each stone that I lay, you are good, so good. With every breath I take in, I'll tell you I'm grateful again. When the moon rises high before each kiss goodnight, you are good. When the road starts to turn around each bend, I've learned you are good, so good. And when somebody's hand holds me up, helps me stand, you are good, so good. With every breath I take in, I'll tell you I'm grateful again. 'Cause it's more than enough just to know I am loved and you are good. So how can I thank you? What can I bring? What can a poor man lay at the feet of a king? So I'll sing you this love song. It's all that I have to tell you I'm grateful for holding my life in your hands. When it's dark and it's cold and I can't feel my soul, you are good, still good. When the world is gone gray and the rain's here to stay, you are good, still good. With every breath I take in, I'll tell you I'm grateful again. And the storm may swell, even then it is well, and you are good. So how can I thank you? What can I bring? What can a poor man lay at the feet of a king? I'll sing you this love song. It's all that I have to tell you I'm grateful for holding my life in your hands. So I'll sing you this love song. It's all that I have to tell you I'm grateful for holding my life in your hands. You are holding my life in your hands.
That was just what you all gave before the service was done. My wife and I have contributed online. Several of you have contributed online. Thank you for the fact that you said it is not good enough that they don't have enough. Because God says you are enough. And in the blessings that He's given us, we've shared the extras with someone who needed more. This family, things are a little bit better than they were, but there's still need. So if you still want to contribute, mark in your envelopes Caring Hearts, or if you go online to adventistgiving.org, type in our church name, and in the giving options, you'll find Caring Hearts as well. Please know that every little bit will help. And this family is so thankful for your prayers and for your help. It looks like a new job has been acquired. And so things are turning around. So please keep praying. Church family, as we get ready to jump into Genesis chapter 4, will you join me in prayer? Let us pray. Dear God, you are awesome. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for never giving up on us. Thank you for thinking so highly of us that you constantly work towards saving us and redeeming us. And Lord, as we are gathered here in your house of prayer, it is through this prayer that we invite you to be God. We invite you to be in control of everything in our lives, of every aspect of our being. Lord, there are so many things in life that weigh us down. There are so many distractions in life that make things overwhelming. But for this time, as we Sabbath together, as we make it a verb, not just a noun, a concept, we ask that you be a hedge of protection around us. Do not let any distractions get in the way of our time with you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for caring for us. And it's in Jesus' name that we all pray and say, amen. As we wrap up our series, I want to give you a brief review of where we've been so you know where we're going. And as soon as I do a little bit of work on the board, I'm going to tell you a story about a young man named Matthew. For part 1, God spoke and he said, in the beginning, or it says in the Bible, in the beginning, God created. The word created is bara. And the word bara is the all-powerful action of God making something out of nothing. But something that wasn't there before, without the elements present, he makes this thing happen. Our God's been called the one who breathes stars into existence. And in this creation, he barad it all, and he barad you. He created you. And in the creation story, you find that there is an upside down pyramid in the story. Because in the story, you find that there's order, and there's dominion, and there's you, and then there's God. But let me explain. Remember a couple weeks ago, we did this understanding of where you see in the creation story a certain order. In day 1, God makes the light and the darkness, and he calls it good. Remember? And there was evening and there was morning the first day, and we talked about how that darkness wasn't considered bad. In fact, God called it good. But everything in our existence today makes the idea of darkness being bad. And a couple weeks ago, we talked about if you find yourself in a dark place, God can make it good because he created it. The devil may have hijacked it, but he created it to be good. So if you're in a dark place, you don't have to fear that God is not with you. God is there too. Don't let the devil rob your hope. God made light. God made darkness. First day. Day 2, he separated the waters from the waters from the waters, if you read it in certain translations, but more modern translations say he made the sky and the water. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. Day 3, he comes in and he says, let the land burst forth through the water. Let there be vegetation, let there be trees, let there be flowers, let there be fruit, let there be vegetables, and everything on this land I have made to be good. Then there's a next part in creation. There's another level. And in this level, there's also 3 parts. But what happens here is that at this point you see that God makes order out of nothing. But here at this next level, he does something different. In day 4, he provides dominion. Now, dominion is an old word that we don't really use anymore. And what dominion can translate into is authority, to rule over something. And what he makes in day 4, he makes he makes the sun, the moon, and the stars, and he creates the seasons. And he says of day 4, sun, moon, and stars, I have made you to rule over day 1. You have dominion over the things of day 1. And there was evening and there was morning, the 4th day. Then day 5, God makes something new. And what he makes, he doesn't speak, he actually barad. Because in verse 1 of Genesis chapter 1, you see the word created, but then you don't see the word created again until you get to day 5. And in day 5, God made the birds of the air and the fish of the sea, and he said, I have barad you. Now fill the sky and fill the sea. In other words, bara in day 5 means make babies. I'm giving you the opportunity to partner with me to create, so make babies. And as you make babies, you will have dominion over the things that I have ordered. There was evening, there was morning, the 5th day. But now we come to the 6th day. But the 6th day is a little bit different. The 6th day actually has 2 parts. So I call it 6A. And in 6A, the first part of day 6, God makes all the animals, all the things that go on the land. And he tells them, I have created you. And I want you to make babies. And I want you to fill the land. I want you to eat the grass. I want you to enjoy the fruit. I want you to enjoy everything that I have made on the ground. And you will rule over it. I think it's pretty clear. When they eat grass as animals, they're pretty much telling the grass, I'm ruling over you. Chomp, 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 chomp. And God says, that's what I made you for, to have dominion or rule over the thing that I ordered. But then the next level of creation is the second part to day 6. In day 6, it says, let us make man in our image. In our image, let us make man. Do you know that every time the Bible says something twice, it's like an exclamation point? And God is being super serious. And he says, when I made you to be in my image. And I think so highly of you that I'm serious. He said it twice. And so when God made us, he made us to be enough. He said to us, you are enough. And in the way that I'm making you, I'm giving you dominion as well. You see, here, he makes you. And you and me and all of us are told that we have dominion and authority over the sun, moon, and stars, and over the light and darkness too. Wait, Pastor, how do I have control over the light, the sun, and the darkness? Well, I don't know, but God said. I don't know. But he gave us that dominion over such things. Well, okay, I can see that we don't know, but all right, so we have dominion over the birds and the fish? Yep. God said, I made all of this for you, so you control all of that as well. And that's true of the animals and of the land. We have dominion over everything. And then this upside down pyramid, what's at the bottom rules the top. And you have dominion over everything. Because God says, you are enough. And I trust you. And I love you. And I'm leaving this for you. Then the story ends with day 7. And in day 7, you find God. And God is in control of everything. And because of that, when we come to part 2 of our story, what we studied last week, when the serpent emerged and provided an alternate creation, and he fooled Adam and Eve and made them lack the very integrity that God gave us here, and they put on the figs, it wasn't good enough for God. When they sinned and they ate of the fruit and the light was stripped away from them and they found themselves naked and they felt shame and they grabbed the branches and the leaves of the fig leaves and they sewed them together, God said, that is not good enough for me. You are more than this. I made you to be enough. And even though you fell for this alternate creation that the devil enticed you with, and let's be real, church family, he entices us all the time. All the time, he's trying to fool us into falling for a creation that is not of God. And when we fall and we're covered in the shame and we're covered in the muck and we think that we're just not worthy, God says, no, that is not what I made you to be. And so we're told in Genesis 3:15 and 16 that God creates a plan to rescue us. And that plan has to do with Jesus. And so he takes the fig leaves off and he clothes Adam and Eve with grace. Grace is a gift that we don't deserve, but grace is a gift that God gives. Because you are enough. And now that we're on part 3 of our series, I want to tell you about Matthew. Matthew grew up in Wyoming, and Matthew was a small, non-athletic fellow. Matthew was always picked on. Matthew was always teased. Matthew had a hard time growing up in Wyoming. As he was growing, his dad was offered a job to go work in Saudi Arabia. His dad took the job, and the whole family moved to the Middle East. While living there, his family decided to send him and his brother to Switzerland to study at an American university that is found there for all foreign nationals that have ties to America and want to receive an American education. And while there, Matthew learned all sorts of languages. He learned and excelled in all things academic. And when he graduated from this school, Matthew decided to study political science and return home to Wyoming. And while he's in Wyoming, at the age of 21, Matthew finds himself at a restaurant. And while at this restaurant, Matthew interacts with 2 other men. These men are his same age. And as they're interacting at the restaurant, which also doubled as a bar, it was time for them to leave. And these two men invited Matthew to ride along with them in their vehicle. These two men drove Matthew to a very shady space outside of town. And when they arrived at their destination, they proceeded to beat Matthew half to death. They used a gun and pistol whipped him. And as they were beating him senseless, he lost consciousness. There was blood everywhere. They tied him to a fence post and they left him there for dead. Matthew had no hope. As the night temperatures dropped, he became unconscious, entered into a coma, and 6 days he died. The story that we're going to look at today in the Bible from Genesis chapter 4 is a lot like this story. Not identical, but a lot like this story, in where the story starts and then all of a sudden it takes this really weird turn. The story has a certain trajectory, and then just like that, it ends with misery and what just happened here? And that's how the devil operates. He wants to take away what God has given you, offer you an alternate creation, and he wants to bring ruin to you. And notice how it happens in Genesis chapter 4. We've already gone through a children's story, and we've already gone through the scripture reading, but together we're going to study this and see what happens in verses 1 through 16. So join me as we read, starting with verse 1. I'm going to be reading from the New International Version. Follow along with whatever translation you have, and notice what the Word of God says. Genesis chapter 4, starting with verse 1. Adam lay with his wife, Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now, Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruit of the soil as an offering to the Lord, but Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. That escalated quickly. You have a story where Adam and Eve, and truthfully, I like the way the King James Version says it better. Adam knew Eve. And the reason I like knew, as in K-N-E-W, to know in the biblical sense. We're keeping it G-rated. We're keeping it G-rated. The reason I like the word knew, K-N-E-W, versus he laid with his wife, is because that word K-N-E-W in the Hebrew, that he knew, it's in the past tense. So what does that mean? Knew is in the past tense, meaning it happened before in the past. And what that means, in my mind, is two things. One, before sin entered this planet, before Adam and Eve both ate of the fruit, this act of knowing in the biblical sense occurred in the garden when there was no sin. And that means that to know someone is not a dirty thing. Sex was never created to be bad. But just like everything else, the devil creates an alternate creation. He perverts the thing. He ruins the thing. And it became so bad at one point that we fall for the trap that our Puritan brothers and sisters brought to America. Because as Americans, we refuse to talk about it. And as a result, our kids don't know what to do with it. How dare you bring up the subject, Pastor? This is making me uncomfortable. It was never meant to be uncomfortable. It was meant to be good. It was meant to be whole. It was meant to complete. It was meant to establish intimacy. It was meant to provide a connection. And when it says that Adam knew his wife, it means that it was a thing that was going to be continuing. It wasn't a one-time thing for just creation purposes. It was a thing to reestablish those things that are broken. It was meant to be good. And if you ever do that act and you find yourself feeling shameful, then you have fallen for the alternate creation. And that's not what God had made. And you've allowed, or maybe I shouldn't say allowed, because sometimes this world's so bad, it gets stripped from you. And just know that you were created to be enough. And the devil may have tried to take that away from you. And God is saying, that was never my plan, and it is not okay. I also like this Hebrew word for new, because this word new is found in the story of Adam. We're talking about it. But it's also found in the story of Abram. Do you remember Father Abraham had many sons and daughters? Many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So let's all praise the Lord. Don't stand up. Do you know that in chapter 18 of Genesis, when it talks about Abram being known by God, it's the same verb, but it has nothing to do with sexual relations. It has everything to do with the intimacy that God wants with us. It's the same word. And every time that a married couple knows one another, it's an element of connection that God wants with all of us. Now, because we're Americans and we've confused sexuality and all those things, it's just a weird concept. But what God wants you to know is, at your most basic essence, He wants to know you. And when He chose Abram, He said, you know what? This alternate creation that the devil has ruined has messed things so badly. I want to know a people, and I want to create through that people something better. Because the ruin and the shame that the devil has created is not good enough for me. He's messed with my kids, and no more. I'm creating a new way of life. And the Bible says that Abram was known by God. And right now, church family, you are known by God. And He knew you from the beginning, before you even were born. And he says, you are enough. Don't fall for the alternate creation. You are enough. And then, when Eve becomes pregnant, for the first time ever, and this is very important, for the first time ever, when Eve becomes pregnant, for the first time ever, a human being mentions the name of God. And it was a woman. She said the sacred name of God that to this day Jewish people don't even speak, Yahweh. And Yahweh has blessed me. And because Yahweh has blessed me, I will have a child. And he is a male child. And it's not this concept of boys are better than girls. It's this concept that she was holding on to the promise of Genesis 3:15 and 16, where God said, this is not good enough for me. The shame and the loneliness that you've been drug into is not good enough for me. I'm going to send the Savior to come rescue you. And so when Eve becomes pregnant, she calls on the name of God and says, Lord, may this be the male child that will rescue us all. May this be the boy that you use to bring a new hope. And so, because she was known by her husband, or they knew each other, and because God blessed, Cain was born. And there was so much hope there. But then the story continues. Because Cain had a brother as well, and his name was Abel. And as they grow up, one becomes like his father. Cain becomes like Adam, working and tilling the ground, and he makes fruits and he makes vegetables. But his brother Abel's a little bit different. He goes after taking care of animals, and he takes care of livestock, and he particularly takes care of sheep. Because sheep are very important in the story of Genesis. Because sheep, we are told, is always an animal that makes us think of the future Messiah. And when it came time to a special offering, both boys gave an offering of the things that they had worked. Cain gave an offering of fruits and vegetables. Abel gave an offering of the fats of the animals that he had raised. And apparently, one of those offerings wasn't good enough for God. Why? The honest truth is we don't know. In our Seventh-day Adventist understanding of this story, we like to tell the story that it's because the sacrificial system needed to take place. And so God never asked for fruits and vegetables. And so when Cain gave these things, it wasn't good enough. God wanted a lamb. So that's the general understanding that we have. There's some Jewish rabbis that teach, no, that's not the case. Because up to this point in the story, God doesn't spell out what kind of sacrifices he wants. And so some Jewish rabbis teach, no, the problem is that Cain gave an offering begrudgingly, and so it wasn't good enough for God. Abel gave it with all his heart, and that's why God accepted it. The honest answer is we don't know. We don't know. But what we do know is how Cain reacted. And for that, let's go to the rest of the story in the Bible, because this part is very important. I'm going to reread verse 5. It says, But on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to have you, but you must master it." The word for downcast, when he saw that his brother's offering was accepted and Cain's offering wasn't, he becomes bummed. He becomes sad. And some translate that word as he fell into depression because he saw that he wasn't good enough. He saw that it wasn't worthy enough. And so he felt his whole identity wasn't enough for God, that God had rejected him. But do you know what's really interesting about God? Do you know what's really interesting and fascinating about this story? And we always miss it because we're more concerned at the fact that he killed his brother. What we miss about this story is that when God saw him downcast, when God saw him depressed and worried, he came to Cain and he spoke with Cain. He came to Cain and said, "Why are you downcast? Why are you sad? If you do what is wrong, you know that bad things will happen." And see, right there, because we're on this side of sin, we're like, God's coming to punish us and scold us too. No, that's not what God came to do. God came to talk to Cain and say, "You are better than this. This is not what I made you to be. You are enough. Don't fall for the alternate creation that the devil tries to implant in your mind. You are enough. Please don't fall for the trap. Please don't let these emotions take you to a place that you should not go." Church family, we as Christians divorce our emotions from our reality. We try to ignore our emotions. We try to suppress our emotions. And that's partly to blame on the Greeks. Because when the Greeks influenced us with philosophies, they also made us think that emotion and intellect need to be two separate things. And we as moderns try to act that way. But what we have to realize is that emotions are things that God created. Emotions are things that we should use to gauge where we are. Have you ever been going through life and this seemingly small thing just makes you so mad that you go into this blind rage? Those emotions are telling you something. I know in my life, when I go from 0 to 60, just like that, and I step back and evaluate my emotions, I can usually pinpoint what is wrong with me. And then I have this special gift from God. Her name is Susie. She's really good at helping me with that. Now, where you chuckle and are like, "Oh man, what are those conversations like?" No, I'm really thankful for my wife. Because like a couple years ago, I discovered through her that I'm really an introvert. And I know usually when I tell this to people, they're like, "No way, you're not an introvert. I mean, look at you. You're talking to us now. You always seem happy and bubbly." And I can do that. And I'm not acting because I love teaching. I love being in front of people. I love being with people. But part of being an introvert for me is that I hit this level where I'm done peopling. And when I'm done peopling, I need to retreat. And the emotions that come with peopling, or when I'm done peopling, is one of quietness, lethargy, and I really don't want to do anything. And so for a long time in our marriage, when I got quiet, my wife would ask me, "Are you mad at me? Did I do something?" And this is how I would respond. Because I was done. The tank went, I guess for you guys it would be, the tank went to empty and I was done. I needed to retreat and recharge. And had I not learned this lesson with my wife, I would keep pushing through. I would keep going forward. I would keep exhausting myself even worse. And when your car hits empty, can you make it keep going? No, it's done. But yet we make our bodies keep going. We ignore the emotions of what our body is telling us, and we bring more ruin to us. Cain hit an emotion that was going to send him to ruin. And God said, don't let this emotion ruin you. Don't let this thing end you. You have so much potential. I love you. I'm here reaching out to you. Please don't do it. Guard it, master it, rule it. I gave you dominion. Rule over those emotions that want to destroy you. The Seventh-day Adventist Bible commentary talking about this verse says that God came and spoke to Cain and essentially told him, there is a lion at the gate. Watch out, because if you go through the gate, you're going to die. Cain went through the gate. And the story goes on. Let's pick up with verse 9. Notice what it says in verse 9. Actually, let's read with verse 8. Verse 8. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is your brother? I don't know, he replied. Am I my brother's keeper? The Lord said, what have you done? Listen. Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain, you must master these emotions, because if you don't, you will die. He goes through the gate. And as he goes out the gate, he calls to his brother, "Yo, Abe, come with me." So both Cain and Abel go into the field. And while they're out in the field, we don't know how it happened. But what we do know happens is that Abel ends up dead. And the Bible says that his blood cries out. Now, before I talk about the word blood, I want to talk about that phrase, cry out. When you look in the Bible and you look at the phrase for cries out, there are many stories in the Bible where that phrase is used. For instance, and the Israelites cried out to the Lord because they were being oppressed by the Egyptians. And when they cried out, God says, "Enough! Moses, go free my people." And the Israelites cried out because of the eastern people. And the Lord called up Gideon and said, "Free my people." There's this thing that happens when we cry. There's this thing that occurs deep within us when we cry. We always look to the child and say, "Mother, make your child stop crying." And we gotta stop that. Because that emotion that the child is showing is very important. The child is trying to communicate in a way that it can, and all the child has is to cry. And the mother becomes attuned to hearing the cries of her baby. And so she knows if the child needs food. She knows if the child needs to be fed. Fed, I guess that's the same thing. She knows if the child needs to be changed. She knows if the child needs to be held. She knows if the child is just being fussy and needs to learn to calm down. And when the Israelites would cry out, particularly think of the Egyptian story, they cried out and God came to rescue them. And that alternate creation that became theirs, God said, "You were made to be more." And right now, this invitation I want to leave you. If you feel like you are lacking, if you feel like you need more, cry out and know that God will hear you. Abel cries out with his blood. And in English, the word is written B-L-O-O-D. But in Hebrew, it's really spelled B-L-O-O-D-S. What happens when you put an S behind a word? It goes from being singular to being plural. And the better translation to what happened when Abel died and he falls to the ground and the blood is leaving his body is that his bloods with an S, more than one. His bloods cry out to the Lord. Do you want to know why it says bloods, plural? Because at that moment, Abel's life wasn't over. Abel's life was over. His kid's life was over. His kid's life was over. His kid's life was over. And that whole family tree is no more. And that is what cries out to God. Essentially, what you find in this story is that Cain used his dominion to tell Abel that he didn't like him. And so he took his dominion and he took Abel's life and ended it. And you have to know something about God, church family. He gives us dominion. And he tells you that you are in charge. But the minute your dominion, the minute my dominion interrupts somebody else's dominion, that's when God steps in. Abel became so angry, he used his dominion to strip Abel of his life. And God says, "What have you done? I have heard your brother's bloods cry out to me. What have you done? Am I my brother's keeper? I don't know where he is." And when God confronts him and says, "No, this is not okay," God says, "You are cursed. You cannot live this way. You will now have to deal with the consequences of your decision." And it was a wake-up moment for him. He is told by God that the very thing he loves to do, he will no longer get to do. He will no longer be able to work the land. And Cain says, "Oh, this punishment is too much for me to bear. The weight of this is too much for me. I can't handle this thing. When this is found out, I'm going to be killed." And God says, "Not so." God doesn't want us to be killed. God doesn't really want to punish us. He wants to correct us. Because correction has elements of grace. Punishment has elements of, "I'm going to show you, boy, what is right." And there's no love and there's no grace there. But correction always allows an element of more. And then we're told that Cain receives a mark, right? And for this, I'm going to invite the praise team to come on up. We're told that Cain receives a mark on his forehead. And many have interpreted this to mean that he was marked as a dead man, that he wasn't worthy of more. But if you look at Ezekiel chapter 9, in Ezekiel chapter 9, the Israelites are marked, and the Israelites are told that if you're going to follow me and you're going to be true to me, put a mark on your forehead so that I may distinguish you from those who are going away from me. But then if you go to the story of Exodus and the final plague, and where they're told that the angel of death is coming, they're told to mark their doorpost. And if that blood of the ewe lamb is there, they will have life. And even though Cain took the life of Abel, God still put a mark of grace and salvation on Cain. And as we sing this final song, listen to the words that the praise team is going to sing. There's an invitation here. And it has to do with the mark. Listen closely to these words.
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for
Matthew Shepard died October 12, 1998, because he was gay. Two men who are now serving life sentences in jail took their dominion and said, "We don't like your lifestyle." And now Matthew Shepard's blood cries out. You see, whenever we use our emotions in a negative way, and we use our dominion to try to snuff life away from somebody else, God doesn't look at that lightly. You've got to realize that your dominion must never conflict with somebody else's dominion. And if your emotions take you to a place that you're going to hurt someone, and I don't mean end their lives, I mean put them down, then you're following the pattern of Cain. And that's not good enough for God. He says, their tears, their blood is crying out to me, and I will swoop in and save them, because I am a just God. So may we become a community. May we become a people of love. That even though we disagree with how people live, we don't use our dominion to snuff life out from them. May we become a people who are marked by the blood of the cross that offers hope to others, even if we disagree with them. May you not be a Cain. May you not be a tyrannical person. But may you quietly and softly hear the call of the Savior that says, my kingdom is about love. So may you shed the figs, and may you enjoy forgiveness.